This video covers interview preparation, the things you do prior to your interview to get ready for all the things that are going to happen during the interview. The more complete your preparation, the more robust your data is going to be. A critical thing you need to start with is background research. You need to understand the time and place your participants are coming from, or that are the centerpiece of the phenomenon that you're investigating. So in order to do this, you need to go and take a look at different sources of data that'll help you understand the ideologies and belief systems of those places and times. You also need to understand what the limits and the possibilities were available to the people living in those times to truly ask informed questions. It's important to be able to ask informed questions without instilling judgment into the way that you're asking the question. The more prepared you are with background research, the better you are prepared to ask those questions without indicating a tone that sets up argumentation. You want to allow a story to emerge without your judgment being imposed on it. Let the narrator talk about how times have changed. You don't need to do that for them. So how do you actually go about doing background research? Well, one thing you can do is take a look at the top news stories of the time. What are the headlines in all the newspapers? What are the things that everyone's going to be talking about? You can do the same with popular culture of the time. What are the top radio programming or television programming of the time? What was everybody watching, or what might be something your participant was interested in? Can you go take a look at any primary source material? Can you read the actual articles from the time? Can you visit a museum set up with material from the time? Can you talk to relatives who have objects from the time? You can take a look at census data for the region and time. What's the general picture look like, and how does that compare to what's going on into the region? I like to compare local census data with county level data, state level data, and national data. That gives me a pretty good picture of everything that's happening at the time. Your interview guide is very simply the questions you plan to ask. Now, if you're studying a point in time or a phenomenon, you might be interviewing multiple people. In this case, there might be questions you're asking of everyone. This data should be collected in a central location so you can compare quickly across participants. As a general rule, your background research should be going into your interview guide to give you really an extensive array of questions that can capture lots of different things about the individual's remembrance of that point in time. You want to be ready to trigger their memory with insightful questions that are open-ended. Let them tell the story. Be ready with probes, having a set of questions that allow a person to expand on what they're telling you. What did it look like? Where were you? Tell me about your surroundings, sights, smells, sounds, anything that can be evocative that gets them telling you more in a way that's relevant to the story you're trying to tell. Be prepared to go in new and different directions. Sometimes your participant will take you in a direction wholly unexpected, even with your extensive background research. That's great. Allow that to happen if you think it could be fruitful for the analysis. A little bit of digression can be okay. Now, if you're going in a direction that isn't in any way going to be helpful to your research, obviously you want to gently steer the conversation back. But sometimes what your participants tell you can be both surprising and take your project in an exciting new direction. Once you're ready to schedule your interview, keep in mind you want to be realistic. People aren't going to be able to tell stories for 3, 4, or 5 hours in one sitting. You'll want to schedule more than one interview. You also may need to be persistent. People are not always the best at getting back to you. When you're trying to schedule interviews, you just need to be pleasant and persistent. You want to allow the participant to choose a location in which they are comfortable, but you also want to make sure that it's a place that's going to be comfortable and pleasant. A chaotic environment is not the right place to be conducting your interview. Can you provide culturally and age-appropriate sustenance during the interview? People are going to be able to sit for longer periods of time if you maybe have tea and snacks or whatever would be appropriate for who they are. If you're conducting your interview remotely, you can always offer to send food delivery to your person, or if you know them well, surprise them with something you know they like. Before your actual interview, you're going to want to practice. Do you know how to make your recording device work? Most people now use things on their phone, but it's important to make sure that you really understand how well the device works and what distance your participant needs to be from it. Make sure you have a backup power pack. I know you always remember to charge your phone, except for that time that you have a big interview and you forget to charge your phone. Practice listening and probing. Can you do a practice interview with somebody you know, a friend or a roommate, where you really practice that deep and intent listening and asking those probing questions? And finally, you're going to want to practice how to manage your affect. People sometimes tell you startling, unsettling, discomforting, disturbing, or upsetting things during interviews. You want to be ready to give them the appropriate response. You want to be caring, but also this is a professional setting. You're a researcher. You're not supposed to render a judgment on what they're telling you. When it's really time for your interview, you want to make sure that you're there early. Whether it's taking extra travel time or extra setup time for the Zoom room, you want to be there 15 minutes before it's supposed to start, even if it means you're sitting in your car or blanking out and muting your Zoom room. You want to make sure you have time to get your head in the game. Can you take a moment to relax, breathe deep, do a little meditation, whatever it is, walk on music, whatever you need to do to make sure that you are ready to really focus on the project and not have all those other distractions of life floating around in your head. And you have all your supplies packed up and ready to go so that at the last minute, you're not going to be late while you search for your power pack or you look for a power cord if you're doing it online. But just take the time to be prepared, and I'm confident that you're going to be able to conduct a wonderful interview.